is exactly for your SRS template. So for your SRS template, I'm basically following IEEE 830 standard template for your SRS document. So how your SRS document is created. This video is an elaboration of how your SRS document is created, what are the different parts in your SRS document, and how you're going to make your actions. At the very start, it's written that this document is your SRS software requirement specification document for your project. You need to write the name of your project. And after writing the name of the project, you're going to write what version this document is. So this is the first version of this specific project. If there exists some previous version of the system of this document, then you need to write it might be the second version of the document and there exists some previous version of the document. Then in your revision history, you're going to mention why you are making this document, what type of changes are being done. So this needs to be mentioned in your revision history. After that, we have our author names, and after that, we have our organization name and the date when this document is being created. So let's see what's in our table of content. So the first part is the revision history. Like I said right now, that in your revision history, you need to write who exactly created the first version of the document and why you are basically applying changes to that document. It might be due to some software updates, or it might be due to um, there are new requirements or new market need or whatsoever reason. And because of this, what exactly part of the document needs to be modified, like section 3, section 4 needs to be modified, and the previous version was version 1 and this is the version 2, and at what date that version was created. Maybe it might be created at 2023, and right now in 2026 you are basically amending this previous document and you are making a new document. So you need to write the revision history as well. So the first part is basically your introduction part. So this part consists of what's the purpose of making this document? What's the purpose of creating this specific software? So you need to write why would someone need this software? For what exactly purpose this software is basically serving. So when there is some need, then you create something. You don't reinvent the wheel. Or if there exists the same system, why would someone use your system? What's the need? So you need to mention the need in your purpose. And after the purpose, the document conventions, if some conventions are being followed in your document, you need to write those. And with that, uh, what who is your target audience, and for whoever person who is reading this document, what type of suggestions you are providing for them. Then comes the important phase. This is your product scope. You need to clearly specify the boundary of the project, of what is included in your project and what is not included in your project. And with that, you're going to write your references. So for understanding what this part would have, let's take an example. So here I have an example of SRS document, which was created by my own students, and it was basically a project which was this is the name of the project. The name is Fluent AI with Bella. It's basically a web app and a mobile app. It serves both the purpose. So this is the first version of this document, and this is created by the design team, or you can mention the name of the students and the company as well. And here comes the table of content. This part, right now we are discussing this part. What exactly needs to be written in the purpose? As you have seen in your IEEE standard template, that right after your introduction, you write the purpose of the document. Why would there exist a need to create a specific software? And you need to highlight that need in this purpose. So um, in this document, after in the introduction part, there is a little detail written after introduction, like in this SRS document, we have different parts, like we are discussing our um, mm, technical and operational aspects of the system and the functionalities as well. So this document is basically the SRS document created for this project. So after this, we can see the purpose. In the purpose phase, purpose part, we are basically exactly writing um, why we have created this project. What's the need of creating this project? So basically, there is no open source project that could help people to learn English. So this is a project that we have created, and we have a target audience that most people in our country, um, they are non-native English speakers. So English is not their first language. So for improving their language pronunciation and for learning English language, um, this AI project will basically help them in learning English. So this app is designed to help students learn English and to improve their English language. So obviously, the project has a purpose, the project serves a cause, and there exists a need to create it. So basically, we have highlighted in our purpose that basically for improving language pronunciation and for improving your grammatical mistakes, we have created this project. So there exists a need, and we have targeted that need. And after the purpose, we have written our scope of the project. So what exactly do we write in the scope of the project? So in the scope part, we basically write that um, we need to exactly write what's the boundary of the project, what would be included in our project, and what would not be included in our project. This is very important to write these things in our scope. So we know exactly what we are going to do, and we know exactly what we are not going to achieve. So in the scope of this document, we have clearly written that this project is basically intended to for learning purpose, that users should be able to learn English language or to improve their English language or improve their grammatical mistakes or improve their language pronunciation. So for this purpose, we have designed this project. So it will provide user real-time grammatic correction and vocabulary correction. Along with that, it will provide a personalized learning path. It means that every user would have their own learning or path, and obviously they would have their own, they can track their learning as well. So these are the different goals, and it will provide an interactive dialogue. Basically, this project, Fluent AI with Bella, it provides you with an avatar that helps, that basically do conversation with the user. So it provides you an interactive dialogue as well. So these are the four main targets that we are going to achieve. Along with that, right, I have said that we are clearly going to write that what would be included and what would not be included within the scope of this project. So it's only going to focus on one single language, that is English. Other than this, any language which is your German, French, whatsoever language, these are not under the scope of this project. We are only going to focus on this language, which is our English language, and we are only focusing on the pronunciation and correction, grammatical correction of this language only. And any other language is not in the scope of this project. So clearly writing the scope of your project in your document is very essential. So you can be on track. So after this, the second part is this is the second part basically, overall description of your project. In this, we are going to write product perspective. By product perspective, anyone, uh, initially you have seen that in your introduction part, you have written your purpose, your scope, but we have not explained our project to the intended audience. So for explaining your project to your intended audience, we need to write product perspective. So user can have an idea of what exactly the product would look like, or can have the idea, can have the bigger picture of your product, or your, sorry, or your project. So um, in your overall product perspective, you're going to write that it's written that this is an AI project which is based on, which provides you with an avatar, and it's basically um, it has different features in it. It will do real-time conversation, and the user can basically improve their grammatical skills, and basically it will provide users with a real-time conversation, personalized feedback, and interactive engagement with an avatar. So this gives you an idea of what your product will look like. So it's designed for non-native English speakers, and basically um, it would help user in learning English language, and they can basically track their progress as well. So there exists a market, there is a market gap, that there is no existing project which is basically which is an open source project, or which is basically targeting on language, and mostly focusing on language pronunciation and grammatical mistakes. So this is the only project designed purely for this purpose. So from here, user can have an idea of what software is intended for. Then comes the second phase, the operating environment. So let me scroll up to the table of content. So in this, as you can see, in this phase, in your overall description of your project, we have your product perspective. Along with that, we are going to write operating environment. And the third thing is design and implementation constraints. So what are your design and implementation constraints? As initially we have studied that in our, just a minute. As initially we have studied in our lecture that there are types of requirements. Requirements can be functional requirements, there are non-functional requirements, and then comes your domain requirements, inverse requirements, and last but not the least, design and implementation constraints. So all these needs to be written, all these are types of requirements, and these should be written in your SRS document. So functional and non-functional and design and implementation constraints, they need to be written in your SRS document. So first we will discuss the operating environment, and then we will discuss what are different design and implementation constraints that we need to consider when we are designing our system. So what is meant by operating environment? So for this project, the by operating environment, it means that in what will be the operating system on which the system will work. So like I said before, this is a web app as well as a mobile app. So for web app, it should work on different browsers. So it should be supportive on Microsoft Edge. It should be supportive on Firefox, sorry, and it should be supportive on Chrome. And along with this, if it's a mobile app, it should be supportive on Android and on iOS. So these things, they need to be mentioned in the operating environment. And if your system, it requires some type of cloud services or database, obviously the system will require some database. So how you have designed that database, um, if it's a Firebase database or whatsoever database you have used, it needs to be mentioned in your operating environment as well. So if there are some hardware requirements or there are some software requirements, they need to be written. In this operating environment, as you can see, it requires cloud services and it requires Firebase database. What exactly cloud services it requires, maybe when students were writing this document, they don't know exactly what type of cloud services they're going to use. So they have written a general aspect of it, not exactly what cloud services they're going to use. But they were clear about they're going to use Firebase database. So they have written that they're going to use Firebase database. Um, it should be supportive on Android and iOS. If it's supportive on Android devices or iOS, then you are also going to mention how much RAM it's going to or space is going to utilize. And along with this, if it requires some kind of location services or um, some other services, they need to be written. If the system requires some protocols, sorry, if it requires some APIs or some third-party authentication, so how user data is made secured, or how you're going to provide data security or privacy for users. So it needs to be mentioned as well. So for students of fourth semester, they might not have a complete understanding of this, but giving them a very general aspect for encryption, for data encryption or for user authentication. There are some services that are being required. So um, how exactly those services are used, you need to write this as well. So this is the part of your operating environment. Under what operating environment the system is going to work. Obviously, the system requires some database, some API services, some cloud services, or um, the system would require some third uh, third party for authentication. So whatever services the system is requiring, you are going to write it. So after this phase, we have our design and implementation constraints. Obviously, um, this is also a part of your requirements as well. If you're using some specific software, um, there are some limitations. There are some design limitations. There are some implementation limitations as well. So you're going to mention them as well. If I take a very simple example, right now I'm using Microsoft Word. So for design purpose, if I have, or in simple words, I have these options available. So within these um, options, I have to work. So if you are designing on Canva or Figma, or on, if you are designing on some other software, it would have certain limitations. So you need to work within those limitations. So those are design limitations that you need to follow, right? So similar to this, you have some implementation limitations as well. whatever IDE you are using, it would have some limitations as well. For example, if I take the example of if you're using Apache NetBeans, um, it's it has certain limitations. You cannot design your interfaces in Apache NetBeans. So, so these are your design and implementation constraint. Or if you are using some specific language um, that doesn't provide some functionality, so that's an implementation constraint. So you need to use some alternative for that. So the after writing all these things, after writing this part of your document, which is your introduction part, um, where you have written your scope, your purpose, then comes your overall description where you have written your product perspective, then comes your product functions. This is very important. You need to write what type of functionalities will be available for user when if they are using the system. And along with that, your user classes and characteristics, the operating environment. Right now, I have discussed this operating environment design and implementation constraints. Now, what are your product functions? So for understanding this, or in your overall description phase, we have this part as well in our document, which is your use case diagram. So use case diagram, it's also known as the scenario view of the system. This basically tells you what type of different functionalities are available for user. There are different use cases of the system. Basically, use cases, it means that in your system, what type of different functionalities are present for the user, they can perform on the system. So what type of different functionalities are available for user? Let's understand this. So in this specific software, Fluent AI with Bella, if I explain things, uh, you have a user and this is your use case diagram. So we have our system boundary, sorry, and on the top we need to write what exactly system user is interacting with. The system name is Fluent AI with Bella. So this is a system. What type of different functionalities are available for user? First is user authentication, or you can say that user should be able to log into the system. And after this, user should be able to um, do conversation with the AI model. So conversation, user should be able to track their progress. Also students, whenever we have in our use case diagram, we have your different use cases. Each use case is a combination of noun plus verb. So mostly it's a combination of noun plus verb, but if it's a verb, still it's okay. Like login is a verb, conversation is a verb, and track progress. And along with that, user can basically, apologize for this, take a quiz, or user can view their results and they can do logout. So these are the different functionalities that are present for the user on this system. So the right now I'm considering only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 functionalities that are available for the user. So after this, you're going to design use case of each of these um, each of these. So for designing your use case for each of these functionalities that are present here. So first use case, um, you need to write use case ID, what are the actors involved, the description, what's the triggering part of it, precondition, post conditions, along with that, the normal flow, alternative flow. And then comes your expectation, business rules, and assumptions. This is what you're going to write for a single use case. So the first use case is here is user authentication. So how user authentication is being done, who is the actor involved here? Your user is the actor who is going to use this functionality. So if they are trying to log into the system should verify or authenticate. So uh, the description is written and that it would when the user is going to log into the system, they will require verification. What's the triggering part of it? When user is trying to log in, what are the preconditions? If there should be internet access and the user should have a registered account with which they are trying to log in. So if they have these things, they should be able to log into the system. What's the normal flow of the user should be able to click on the login screen, then they need to enter their credentials, and it needs to be cross-verified from the database. And after it has been verified, the user should be able to see the dashboard screen. So um, what are the alternative flows? If 3 times user have entered incorrect login credentials, or on the first screen, user is given the option that they can log in with Facebook or Google, Gmail. They can click on this option and they can basically surpass this login. So I do think that instead of writing tools user authentication, it should be login. So who is exactly triggering this event? User is triggering this event. So the actors involved in it are whatsoever user using this. So um, in case when we have user authentication, then our actors are the backend database, and from there exactly user is basically authenticated. So after this, what are the assumptions that are made? First assumption is that user should have a registered email address. And what are the business rules? Business rules are basically those rules that are applied if user can have 5 um, alphanumeric 5-digit alphanumeric password, then this depends on your business rules. They might change according to your different organizations or based on their rules. If there is some expectation, exceptions made, then what are those exceptions? Exceptions are that if there is some network error, then this user is not able to log in the system. So this is an exception. So after writing all of these use cases, um, and as you can see, there are tons of use cases here. After this, you're going to write your NF bars, your non-functional requirements. So what are your non-functional requirements in this case? Non-functional requirements are basically ADTs, those quality attributes that a system should possess. So they include the attributes like, apologies. So they consider attributes like usability, performance, security, scalability, and availability, and most importantly, your usability. So, what are those attributes? By usability, it means that what are the elements that make it more intuitive and uh, make it easier for the user to understand it without having some prior knowledge? Or are the screens easily readable, easily accessible, easy clickable? Whatever method, ways you have added for your user to use it, to make it more intuitive. So if user clicks on certain options, the system should be responsive. The system should give user real-time feedback. The system should basically keep user engaged. So all these things, these come in your usability. Then comes your performance. By performance, it means that the system should be able to um, respond, sorry, quickly. It should be responsive. The system should be responsive. So if user is clicking on some specific option, the system should give it outcome within 2 seconds or within some milliseconds. So uh, in this comes under your performance. So along with this, your system should be able to handle concurrent users as well. So all these things become under performance. Then come the important aspect, reliability and availability. By reliability, it means that if some error or some failure state comes, then the system should be able to recover from these failures. There should be some the system should be able to recover, or there should be some backups available. So Um, along with this, the system should be available 24/7. So users face no issue. But so these are the different things that you're going to consider. Along with this, we have our scalability. Scalability means that if you're going to increase the number of users, the scale of your system, when it's increased, the system should be able to handle it properly. The system should not crash, or the system should not mm, slow its performance. This should not be compromised. This should not be compromised. All right. So these are the things that need to be considered. So along with this, we have security requirements. Obviously, the system should secure user data. It should provide end-to-end encryption. It should provide, obviously, users entering their personal information and their information, it needs to be secure. So what are the ways you are using for securing using user data? And for privacy purposes, how you are keeping it user information and user data secured? So they need to be written as well. Compatibility and integration requirements. The system should be compatible with the latest and new updates in your iOS and Android and your browser updates. All right. So it should be compatible with these things, and the system should be able to integrate in those operating environments as well. Then comes your maintainability. By maintainability, it means that the system should be able to maintain, um, and if there are some bugs or some failures, the system should cope up from those failures. And accessibility requirement have already been discussed. So the last thing is references. If there are similar projects or projects that have something in common with them, then you can use the reference of those projects as well. So, or reference of whatever sources from where you have taken help or things like this. Okay, so you need to write it. So I hope everything in your SRS document is clear. Furthermore, as you can see in your template, you have your external interface requirements as well. Um, if your project is a hardware project, then you need to write your hardware interfaces as well. If it's not, if it's just a software project, then you're going to write software interfaces. And if there are certain features of the system, then you are going to write them as well. In this template, the non-functional requirement, there is a separate category for it, and each category is each entities are explained separately. So I have explained all the points. I hope everything is clear to all my students, and I hope they get the idea of how they're going to make the SRS document. This was a video, and when students were learning their subject related to software requirement engineering, um, they have questions regarding how their SRS document will be made. So I hope now from this IEEE 830 template and an example of it, a practical example of how you're going to use that template. I hope every point is clear. I hope